Hello, and how are you? You are God's best idea. Do we believe that? Do we feel that? Oh. Well, by the end of our little session here, hopefully you will know it and feel it and embody it as we go along. My name is Douglas Holzmeyer, and I am the author of You Are God's Best Idea, Divine Acceptations and Living the Undeniable Life. And it is published by Balboa Press, which is a subsidiary of Hay House Publishing. And at the top there it says Inspirational Stories from Undeniable Lives. And we are all inspirational stories, aren't we? I wanted to start off reading a poem that I wrote nearly 3 years ago. And it's really the only poem I've ever written. And it's so good, I may not write another. Wasn't that what Margaret Mitchell did? She wrote Gone with the Wind and said, okay, I don't need to write another one. It's called Rumi's Field. New thoughts, ancient wisdom, the beacon of a beneficent kingdom. Messianic mariners sailing on the waves of universal mind, dispatched with divinity on the sunship infinity. Love, the gentle wind that parts seas, the spirit of creation that launched eternity, anchored in truth, our manifest destiny. The mind mirrors, the soul delivers. Consciousness knows, thoughts are things, shepherd them well. There's a place beyond the ideas of right and wrong, near the sea of tranquility, a field of consciousness, ripe with truth, where you are, I am, and God is, as one. I'll meet you there, and we'll have all kinds of fun together in that field where there are no right and no wrong. Well, we are going to, in this first session, go over what I call the divine ideas. They certainly aren't all the divine ideas that ever have been, but they're the ones that I thought of and wrote and developed some epigrams regarding. Now, my background, 30 years in radio. I grew up in a small town near Columbus, Ohio, called Grove City, and a child of the 60s and 70s. Any children of the 60s and 70s here? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And, I had a life that was similar to a lot of folks' lives. There were lots of ups and downs, some great times and some not so great times. And it is from both of those times, really, that my experiences that I write about in the book come from. And I came from a family that had some issues. And maybe yours did too. Do we have some family issues that we're maybe still working through? And because I really felt that in order to speak to some of these things that we carry with us in our adult lives, that it would be dishonest not to share those. So if you've read the book so far, you know of some of those things. And how many of you have read the first part of the book so far? All right. So you know that my father was an alcoholic. And mother was, had to deal with that. And we had 8 kids, and we had an Irish setter, an English setter, a border collie, a beagle, a hound dog, a German shepherd. Not all at once, but there was some overlap, and lots of cats and things. And this was before Bob Barker and neutering. So when we got one cat, several more came with them. So it was quite a lot of activity in our 4-bedroom, 2-story house at 416 Sawyer Drive in Grove City, Ohio. And so we made it through there, but there were some dark times for me. And although certainly my adult life has been a much lighter, some of those issues were still hanging around. And it is through the classes that I've been taking and the spiritual journey that I've been on, that I've been able to work through those to the point, I believe, at this present point, that those those memories, those events are now just that. They're benign. They don't hold any sway or power over me, other than the fact that they have played a role in this book. So in that way, that must mean that they had a purpose, or I've given them some purpose. And that is the key to thinking, is that you can't change past events, but you can change what they mean to you. Literally, like that. I didn't do that very well. Like that. I mean, you can, in a moment, decide that that horrific event no longer rules your life. Now, or you can kind of work through that. It is magic, but it is the magic that we all are connected to when we want to be connected to it. And that is the power of love, which is God. Because what we want to do is we want to get to the point where we literally are living an undeniable life. That can mean many, many different things. I think of it in terms of acceptance. If you're accepting all the good, that means you're not denying the good that should be yours. And you're hanging around and you're staying with it, because it is you who can express with and through God all those divine attributes. And so we want you to do that. We need you to do that. The catchphrase, if you will, the one that I share with everybody and that I want everybody to know from me, is the following: you are divine and important, needed and necessary, loved and the beloved. You are God's best idea. Now, what is God's best idea? It's love, because that is what God is, and everything from God and of God is love. And you are of and from God. So you are love manifest, just like everybody before you and everybody that will be after you. So, divine idea number one, you are God's best idea. You are from and of God, as we stated. You are God's stuff. You are a divine and perfect idea in the mind of God. And I was asked that on an interview I did yesterday for Hay House Radio. Diane Ray, the host, asked me, "Where'd you get that?" She goes, "I love that." And I said, well, I was reading the Ernest Holmes Science of Mind textbook. And in there, he says we are a perfect idea in the mind of God, human beings. So if that's the case, and I take a look around and I see lots of divine things, lots of wonderful things, but nothing more wonderful than human beings. Now, we don't always act that way. That is true. But clearly, as divine as the eagle and the whale and the snail and the cat's tail is, we human beings can do things that they cannot do. And we can love, and we have the free will not to do that. So it's kind of a dichotomy. We have this free will thing, and the idea is to get centered in love and in that love consciousness, and to, as much as we can, just be who we are, which is love and life. And you are the highest form of visible life on the planet. You can express God with and through your divinity, and you do so in unique ways. We don't have to name them here. You know what they are. Therefore, you are not only divine, you are important, needed, and necessary, loved in the beloved. As we stated, you are God's best idea. Now, what are we going to do with that? What are we going to do with that? Because before now you didn't know. Or maybe you had an inkling. But now you know. So there comes responsibility with that knowing. So I'm sort of known for my epigrams, witticisms, metaphors, maxims. I call them epigrams. And I'm going to share those with you. And as we share them, I'll expound on some of them. Awake, ye sleeping beauties, you children of God. You are the purpose, the promise, the plan. You are God's best idea. You don't have a purpose. necessarily. You don't have promise necessarily. There isn't a plan necessarily. You are the purpose and the plan and the promise. Because it's all love. It's all reunifying with love. And you are love. So you are the purpose, the promise, and the plan. So as you're searching around going, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? I don't know what my purpose is. As it has been said, just be the love that you are. That's the start. And then you can kind of route it in certain directions and let it flow this way and let it flow that way. And what I have found is once you let the universe know that you're ready and willing to do this stuff, it'll happen. You'll find where you need the flow. There'll be people coming to you saying, hey, flow this way. You've got something I want. Share that story with me. Share that love with me. It'll happen if you're willing and ready to let your love flow, as the Bellamy brothers once sang. You are the expectation of the ages. You are God's best idea. Think about that. Now, you wouldn't be here if you weren't expected to be here. And you have things to do. We're all doing the same thing, which is loving and serving. And how we do that, again, that's the part that really is up to us. Of course, when we're open to divine will, you'll be led in that respect. You are God's idea. The idea of you is still perfect. In fact, as a divine being, you are perfect. It's a perfect idea. You are no less, I love this, you are no less than Beethoven and much more than Beethoven's Fifth. You are no minor thing. What does that mean? I wrote that for my son, who's a musician. Beethoven's Fifth, I guess, is in a minor key. Dun, 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 dun. So as wonderful as Beethoven's music is, it isn't as perfect and as divine as Beethoven. And that's the important thing to never forget, because we get caught up in that, don't we? We tend to look at the movie star or the rock star or the person with the house, the big house on the hill, and we go, wow, they're better than we are. They've got more than we are. What are they doing that I'm not doing? And setting that aside for the moment, just understand that whatever they produce is not better than who they are instinctively and inherently. You are no minor thing. You are not a prospect for conversion. You are an unalterable child of divinity. That means you are not here to be converted, because you are the original love manifest. You don't need to convert to anything other than, if anything, we need to revert to what our natural state is. The nature of our original being is love. Happiness isn't about what you do or where you go. It's who you are and what you know. So it's important to know now that you're God's best idea. You are here to magnify the supply. You are divinely magnificent. I think that came about one day when referring to a magnifying glass, that everything that is, all the supply is here. The abundance is here. We call it forth. This book existed, but I had to magnify it to bring it forth. It was here, but I had to unveil it. You are God's pride and joy. You are the wonder of wonders. Does that sound good to know that? Do you feel that, Richard? Absolutely. You are more than the worst or best thing you've ever done. You are more than the worst or best thing that you've ever done. Again, that's referring to Beethoven's Fifth. It's wonderful, it's great, and I'm glad it's here, but it isn't greater than he himself. And the worst thing that Beethoven ever did, or the worst thing that I ever did, or you ever did, as horrible as it may have seemed at the time, or no matter what terrible thing may have been done to you, that person is more than the worst thing that they ever did. It's just something they did. Nobody is And I wrote this next one because if you've read the book, you know that part of the inspiration of this book was I was affected by someone I knew who committed suicide. That had never happened. I'd never experienced that before. And I had experienced thinking about taking my life before, but I had never known someone who did it. And it had a profound effect on me. And I just think, if you're in a situation where somebody is contemplating doing something like that, what is going to walk them off the ledge, pull them back toward life? Is it going to be, you're a sinner, you have original sin, you need to be this, or you need to convert to that, or you need something other than what you already are? That isn't going to work. They're going to go, bye-bye. But if they hear, as I say here, nobody is talked out of committing suicide by being told how lousy they are. Tell them you are God's best idea. They've got a fighting chance if they hear that, and if they think about it, and if they eventually embody that idea, then they can live an undeniable life. Who are you to think you can do that? You are God's best idea. That's who. Has anyone ever told you that? Who are you to do? You can't do that. Who are you? You're God's best idea. That's who. You were put here to do something. God is love. Love is God. Since you are from and of God, you are love. You are a divine expression of love, and your reason for being is to express this love. Love God and thy neighbor as thyself, the only new commandment Jesus emphasized, right? So follow me on this one. This is called connecting the dots. God is love, and Jesus was an expression of this God's love. Jesus is love. Jesus says, I am the truth and the light and the way. That must mean that truth is love, and light is love, and the way is love, which means love is the truth, the light, and the way. Jesus says, no one gets to the Father except through me. Well, of course, it's true. Jesus is love. So you cannot consciously connect with the Father, Mother God, except through and with love. That's just what that means. It's very simple. And also, what it means is that when some suggest that the entire world has heard the gospel of Jesus, in a sense they have. If they have ever known love, they know Jesus, so they know what the way and the light and the truth is. Anything less than unconditional love is an exercise in illusion. Love is loyal. God is loyal. Love is integrity, whole, entire, and undiminished love. You are love. You are integrity, whole, entire, and undiminished love. You are that right now. You don't have to work toward that. You just have to remember it and embody it and vibrate it through your energy, through consciousness. I find love everywhere I go because everywhere I go, love is. You can't escape it. That's the crazy thing. You can't get away from it. It's right here. You are inside what is inside you. Love is never lost. It is just the faces that reveal it to us that change. And that's important, especially when you've lost somebody that is no longer with you. I heard recently that by Halloween, I don't know how they measure this, but I'll take their word for it. By Halloween, we'll have officially 7 billion people on the face of the earth. There are 2 people being born basically every moment, and 1 is passing away. So when you lose somebody, literally within that same minute, 2 more people have replaced them. So you can find that love in, pick. There's 7 billion people to pick from. They're here for you if you want them to be. Do everything with and through love, and love is the thing that comes through. Love is always present. To the degree it is expressed by and through you determines how much you experience. When you're feeling melancholy, when you're feeling down, when you're feeling kind of out of sorts, You got to let that love flow. You got to get it going. You got to remember who you are. Love is the mother of faith, father of peace, and brother of understanding. Again, if you've known me for a while, you know that I love peace, love, and understanding. The song, What's So Funny About Peace, Love, and Understanding? It's a song that Elvis Costello covered back in the day. I think Nick Lowe wrote it. I think that's right. What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding? It's a pretty cool thing. Be partial to love. Being partial to love is integral to unity. So if you're going to have a prejudice, if you're going to have a bias, if you're going to be partial to anything, make it love. Why not? And that is part and parcel to unity. God is when, I love this one, God is when strangers embrace. And you could just stop right there. You don't even need the rest of that epigram. God is when strangers embrace. God is when strangers embrace as if they have longed for each other all of their lives. The first time I came to this particular center, I remember hugging people I had never seen before, as if they had known me and we had known each other all of our lives. When God is the goal, love is the mission, and bliss the reward, you can switch all those words around. You can switch God, love, and bliss all around. I'll read it backwards. When bliss is the goal, God is the mission, and love is the reward. When love is the mission, bliss is the mission, and God is the reward, because it's all the same. That's the beauty. I invite you to, when you read the Bible, which I do from time to time, substitute the word God with love. And if it works, you know you've got something that probably is embossed with truth. If it doesn't make sense, then it could be a mistranslation, a misinterpretation, or just a mistake. Divine idea number 3, inherent divinity. As we mentioned earlier, you are inside what is inside you. Meaning, and I was going to draw, but I don't do that well. Draw a circle, that's God. Put some circles inside there, that's you and me. And put another little circle inside us, and that's God. You are inside what is inside you. That's called inherent divinity. That's what the mystics say and believe. Jesus was a mystic when he said, I and the Father are one. St. Francis of Assisi, and so many others, which, there's a list right there, in fact. This is just a handful of them. Ernest Holmes, Marianne Williamson, Meister Eckhart, T.S. Eliot, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Joel Goldsmith, George Fox, Emmett Fox, St. Francis of Assisi, Charles Fillmore, Joan of Arc, William Blake, Emil Cady, Neville Goddard, Martin Luther, St. Peter, Phineas Quimby, who was considered the great-grandfather of New Thought, Mary Baker Eddy, Emma Curtis Hopkins, Teresa of Avila, Emanuel Swedenborg, Thomas Troward, Plotinus, who I'm reading a lot about lately, Rumi, who's my favorite poet, and of course, Jesus. And as we mentioned, the circle, you and I are the circles inside of God. God is also a circle of love, if you will, inside you. So you are not separate from God ever, no matter how it may seem at times. You are never without love because you are inherently within love, and love is inherently within you. There is no escape. You will not get out of this unloved. So some of the epigrams that are associated with inherent divinity are, shame is a lie adopted by the bastard kin of doubt, rejected by divinity. Every once in a while I like to throw in some words that make you go, oh. Shame is the lowest emotion on the consciousness scale. It is, you cannot shame anybody to anything positive. It's a bad way to motivate people. You are a witness to divinity. Testify on your behalf. Think about that. Is it time to testify? It is. I mean, it really is. It's a time for us to do that, to testify about the good news of inherent divinity. And that's what I'm doing. Every day, you're either ascending with love or descending through fear. Use your wings of divinity. We'll talk more about fear and doubt as we go along, especially in part 2 and 3. But what lifts our wings are how we ascend is with love. And we descend through fear. A flaw. A flaw is the gift that God gives us to remind us that perfection is not defined by outward beauty, but inner divinity. To abide suffering is to betray divinity. I want to be clear on this. We all suffer to a degree or another, especially when we lose loved ones. Mourning and grieving is necessary and totally fine and divine. But needless and purposeful suffering, putting yourself in front of bows and arrows, is not what you need to be doing. It isn't necessary. And again, I'm not saying that there aren't opportunities to be heroes. And sometimes as a hero, you do literally take a bullet. But you don't have to. If somebody said to you when you were a kid, we all suffer and you're just going to have to put up with it, and the more you suffer, the better you are, that is not what this life is supposed to be about. So don't abide suffering. You are an augmentation of divinity, which means an augmentation means an amplification. Otherwise, why is all this stuff here? Because in the beginning there was just God, and why is all of this here if we aren't amplifying God through us? We amplify God's love, don't we? We're like a sound system. Let's make a beautiful sound. The cure for insecurity is a consciousness secured in divinity. I'm telling you, it really is that potentially simple. So your security comes in a consciousness of love and knowing that you are God's best idea, that you are inherently divine, regardless of outside appearances. And then when would now be a good time to accept you are a child of the Most High and inherit what is inherent? Because although it's inherent, until you accept it, it may be there, but it ain't doing a whole lot for you. You got that? I know it may be semantical, but if you had a trust fund and you inherited $25 million and it just sat there and you never did anything with it, and you're not using that energy and you're not circulating it for good, then it just kind of sits there. God is all there is. This one would be very difficult for somebody hearing that for the first time, but most of the folks that I see in this room are familiar with this idea. And again, it helps when things don't seem right. It is all God in the beginning. However you can define beginning, there was only God. Even the scientists believe that whatever was always was. And then it exploded and it became all these planets and solar systems. But it was, and it just became something else or something additional. When God began to create, God, again, however you define God, energy, principle, her, him, it. When God began to create, God did this with the only thing there was, God. So from God came God, manifest in and through Spirit, and all that we attribute to Spirit, all substance and forms. In other words, this thing didn't create sugar. It created sugar out of what it was. Everything that is was created out of what was in the beginning. Even some of the things that we don't think of as being, pleasant. The hyena came from God as much as the cheetah, the turtle, as well as the lion. They all have a purpose, or they wouldn't be here. Forms that are ever moving in and out of form, but the spirit energy goes on forever. So again, these things are changing. There used to be dinosaurs. And who knows what new animals are evolving that we'll find someday and go, wow, never seen that one before. In Genesis, it says that the universe was created and God called it good. Not some of it, but all of it. And since it is all good, it is all God, and because it's all God, it is all good. And God, literally, the dictionary says, God simply means self-existent good. So, do we agree that most of what we see and experience and have, whether we use it positively or not, in and of itself, it's good? We can use a hammer to do some good things. We can use a hammer to do some not so good things. But the hammer in and of itself and the wood and the metals that make up the hammer are good. So it's self-existent good. Life is easy when you realize that it isn't about believing in God as much as it is knowing that God is all there is. Think about that. I don't contemplate anymore. Oh, do I believe in God or not? Do I believe in God? Oh, this passage says this and that story in the ark and the fish and Jonah, and I don't have that exercise anymore. I don't have to go through the stories and parse out which ones might be true and what ones might be divine. Because I just say, it's all God. It's all here, so I know it exists. I don't have to fool around with doctrine or dogma or all those other words where people have tried to compartmentalize all that is. Unifying with divinity is your sole discretion. That's a play on words. Get it? Soul discretion. Your soul plays a role in this, and there is some differing on the definition of soul, but most people believe that that when you have a lot of anxiety, that's your soul's way of saying, wake up, there's some things we need to do. There's some things I want to do. I want to be connected. I want to experience. I want you to have. And so your soul is going to tap, whether from the inside or from the outside or however you want to put it. In fact, I'm reading a book right now, the Plotinus book, is that the explanation Plotinus gives us is that souls aren't in us, we're in the soul. We're inside this soul. And I certainly believe that we're inside God and God is inside us. So the soul works essentially the same way as far as we can hypothesize. When you've done all that you know to do, all there is left to do is be still and know God is. In other words, when you find yourself going, I don't know what else to do, and I've been there, I've done that. I don't know what else to do. What else do you want me to do? In that moment, all that you really need to do is be still and know God is. And then maybe take a nap. And wake up later when you feel better. God is the sweet, and this was from the poem that we read at the beginning. God is the sweet and gentle truth that whispers from within, that gives me my words, my voice, and my peace. I do believe that many of the really divine things in here were authored by someone other than myself. I mean, I can tell the story about me climbing across a tree limb. That's me. But the stuff that is really mind-blowing, I don't take credit for. I'm just the instrument. God blew that through me and made a beautiful sound. Everywhere there is a where and a here, a then and a now, a what and a how God is. That doesn't mean that God is the generator of everything that's going on. But God is there, even in the most horrific moments. God is there to see you through it. God hasn't left you when that terrible thing is going on. Everything this is really, I like this. Is it okay if I say I liked something I wrote? I like, because some of these I really, yeah. God, I like what you wrote through me. Everything, because some of these I revisit and I go, yeah, I did write that. Everything goes together because they came together. If you think scientifically, it all came in one big bang, we think. All of those elements all came together. Now, of course, they combined and recombined chemically and biologically and evolutionarily. Those things, became that colored rock or coal or a diamond or whatever over time. But all of it came together. So it all goes together. So God is all there is, and all there is God. So again, some people say, God, this doesn't seem to fit together. But it does in some way. One power. And again, this is fundamental to mysticism. Clearly, the power can be misused. It can be mishandled. Again, it can go through if we are instruments, if there is a diseased brain, literally a diseased brain, there are diseased brains that comes from illnesses and whatnot. Some brains are damaged. And what comes through a diseased brain can be what we would perceive as bad or negative or ugly. If you've ever had a broken computer and tried to work the programs, they don't work like they're supposed to. But the software is fine. It's just the operating system that's breaking down sometimes, and that is a real thing. We know that does happen. But there is one power. That power is a power for good. That power is God. That power is love. There is no other power. All man-made forces that attempt to fight power with force fail. There's a difference between power and force. When you force something, there tends to be a reciprocal force the other way. It's like, you force somebody to do something they don't want to do, they tend to fight back. And sometimes they should. But in a higher consciousness, when someone's trying to force you to do something you don't want to do, if you call on power, if you call on love and a higher awareness and consciousness, you can diffuse the force that's coming at you. Or it'll go that way. It'll find somebody else to mess with. Let's put it that way. Because it'll go, oh, you're one of those love people. I'm not going to get under your skin. Anything that tries to extinguish love is ultimately shown to be the illusion it is. It is nothing, because the only thing that is real is love. And that's from A Course in Miracles. The only thing that is real is love. So when we're going through stuff that doesn't seem very lovely, that stuff eventually goes away. Kidney stone. Eventually it goes away. Eventually. You are real and love is real. So some of the epigrams I wrote in regards to power. Unite with divinity until you become love, love until you become one. You are neither the hammer nor the nail. You are the power that provides their purpose. You have nothing to overthrow, overpower, or overcome. God has done all of that for you. So when you unite with God and love, it may seem that you're overcoming struggles and strife, but really it was already overcome. We just had to plug in with the power that was going to unveil the illusion of whatever the trouble was. To reject the life you have built is to now this is very important. To reject the life you have built is to reject the power you use to make it, and will need to change it. So it's very, very important. If it's kind of messy, you can say, okay, this is a mess. But you did use law to create the mess. And you kind of misused the power. You sowed the wrong seeds, possibly, or you got with the wrong guy, or you took the wrong job, or who knows what it is. But you're going to need that power and that law to get it right. So it's important to understand that we've got a mess here, but I can still use those instruments, the power and the sowing of the seeds, to fix it. So be careful not to over-condemn what has shown up, because there was a power and law involved in it showing up in some way or another. So with power your dreams, not your doubts. Power your dreams, not your doubts. As an example, a little over a year ago, I said, I'd been thinking about this for a long time, but I said, I'm going to do this. And I put all of my power behind the manifestation of this. Only once or twice did I go, it usually was a snowy or blizzard, a bad cloudy day or something like that. I said, and some of those old reruns of some old messages that from ghosts of the past kind of went, psst, 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 psst. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? You're not even a practitioner yet, and you're writing a book. Who are you to do that? I'm God's best idea. That's who. Shut up. I had a message, and the message was now. I was given the message now. Why wait? Now, in some hierarchies, in some situations, they would have said, no, we're not going to let you do that yet. I'm guessing that would be the case probably in some situation. No, you're not ready to write a book yet. You need to be something more. I can't be anything more. I was born divine. You know, every once in a while we'll see that. We'll see the 5 or 6 or 7-year-old who sings like they're 35. I mean, sometimes we actually do see people doing things that they're not supposed to be able to do until later. But if they can sing beautifully and perfectly now, let them sing. And even if they can't, let them sing if they want to, right? The power that created the universe created you. You are a powerful creation. Just remember that. You are a power. Do you believe that, Lorna? You're a powerful creation? All right. The lying and the liar have no place or power until you relinquish your sovereignty. If you relinquish your sovereignty, the lying and the liar, they'll be there. If you believe in a devil, it'll be there. If you believe in a demon, it'll be there. We're powerful people. I've had some dreams. There are some weird characters that come into our dreams. And some say that they actually come into our dreams, but again, just like when we're awake, we imagine things. We imagine things in our sleep as well. And that imagination, Steven Spielberg has quite an imagination. He has created some really interesting things. We are amazing creators. So we can create the demons if we want them, but I don't want them. Show me a person who has no belief in a higher power, and I'll show you someone who has never had biscuits and gravy. If you've ever had a great plate of biscuits and gravy, you know God is. The eternal now. This is important stuff because it answers the questions. These concepts answer the hard questions. God has always been, God will always be, God is eternal, you are from and of God. God cannot be destroyed, you cannot be destroyed, you are eternal. There is only this moment and this now. And this next one's very, very important and powerful. Since God is eternal, your invitation is made in the unremitting now. Your place is reserved. What that means is, since there is only now, and God has extended an invitation to be unified and conscious, that is never rescinded. Because we think in human and day terms and hours and minutes, and in years we think, oh, time is running out. Time is running out if I don't get right with God soon. But there's only now. So if God ever extended the invitation to be united, and there is only now, it can't be rescinded, because there is only the moment that invitation was extended. That is why you are okay even when it seems like you're not, because eventually you're going to get it. I'm not saying that no one has ever died on a bed who never quite got it, but they're going to get it next time around, or they're going to be reminded of it somewhere. Why did you keep hitting that hammer against your head? Most people eventually realize what they're doing. They're banging their head against a wall instead of just being who they are. They eventually get it. I didn't get it till I was 47, although I think I knew it on some level when I was 4 or 5. Because when I was 4 or 5 and people were telling me goofy things about original sin and how awful I was and how much I needed God, I'm thinking, what have I done? I haven't done nothing wrong, But then when the bullies start bullying you and people start hitting you, and I saw assassinations on TV, and then you start seeing all these negative things, and you start going, maybe they're right, but they were always wrong. You had it right when you were a baby and when you were a kid, when you were just being peace or being love or being sunshine and roses, when you were on your knees looking at the grasshopper and the praying mantis and going, wow, that was right. Not the killing and the Vietnam films that we saw every night on TV. That was the wrong part. But that happened because of fear and doubt, not because of God and love. So each moment of every eternal day, more of me is more of God. For the things I write are inked with and through the divine. And I believe it. Some of the things that I write now are even more inked in divine ink. I think that rhymed. Love, this was in the original poem, love the gentle wind that parts seas, the spirit of creation that launched eternity, anchored in truth, our manifest destiny. What is our destiny? Our destiny is love. And we're anchored in truth, that all there is love. So we're anchored in it. It's our manifest destiny. And we're just being reminded. Sometimes we're reminded with whispers. Sometimes we're reminded at a workshop. Sometimes we're reminded by a butterfly. Delight in the eternal being, await no toll nor day of ringing. That was inspired from, for whom the bell tolls. Nope, the bell's not ringing for you. It's a nice bit of work. It's a nice title, but it is not ringing for you. Because you have an eternal being, and that bell that closes you out is never ringing. Because when you go from here to somewhere else, you do. The good received through Spirit comes directly from the table of heaven, where you have an eternal reservation. Again, it's always there, whether you choose to sit at the table or go to McDonald's. Mom's home cooking is better. And you know that. But sometimes we go to McDonald's anyway. Don't confuse a temporary condition for an eternal truth. You are spiritually perfect, whole, and complete. So again, that temporary condition is not an eternal truth. It just is. I had chicken pox when I was a kid. It didn't last. And by having the chicken pox, I was now immune from ever having chicken pox again. Now is the eternal present. Never doesn't exist. So it is really now or ever, not now or never. So when somebody tells you it's now or never, they're not telling you the truth. It's now or ever. There are plenty of opportunities to do whatever it is they're telling you that you may be missing if it's not the right time for you. Every day is Christmas morning where we get to open the gift of the present. Every day, it's Christmas if you want it to be. Now is your duration. Love is your endurance. Meaning there is only now, however long now is, and love is your endurance. So if you're going, oh my God, I don't know if I can take it anymore. I don't know if I can take another day of this. Love is your endurance. Now is the opportunity to love. Do you know? When I write these, I put quotation marks around them, and then I Google them to see if anyone had ever written it before. No one had ever done that. No one had ever written, now is the opportunity to love. Think how simple that is. Now is every moment is now. Every moment is an opportunity to love. Your happy ending begins now. If it hasn't been so happy up to now, now you can begin your happy ending. Today is a review of yesterday and a preview of tomorrow without a new view of right now. So if you're going, God, not another day of this, if that's the attitude, chances are yesterday you didn't start anew. You didn't go, okay, that didn't work. I'm going to look at it differently, or I'm going to do something differently. Until you view this moment as a potential moment of manifestation for a dream. If you don't do that, it's just a passing moment. And it just goes. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you do have a dream, if you do have something you want to see and create, now is a pretty good time to start. Fear of what, now, so why don't we do that? Fear of what's next is determined by the level of faith in what's now. What is your level of faith in what's now? If you're going, oh man, woe is me, well, you're not showing much faith in the moment. So if what is happening right now you don't have much faith in, then what's next isn't going to be any better. So you fear it. And then what happens? You become paralyzed. And you just sit. And we want you to move because everything is moving. Everything is we live in an ocean of motion. Even the things that don't seem like they're moving are. Now is the time, whatever it is and whenever it happens, it will be called now at that moment. It is always now. So now is the time. Everything is perfect. If we agree that the tree and the tree frog are perfect representations of trees and frogs, when is it then that a human being, or anything else for that matter, is imperfect? When the baby is born, don't we say, oh, that's a perfect miracle. Oh, man, look at that perfect baby. Doesn't look as beautiful as my baby, but it's still a perfect baby. When does that perfect baby become an imperfect toddler? Seems to me most so-called imperfections are simply opinions and judgments made by people who were leveled literally by opinions and judgments. Somewhere along the line, somebody said that was a bad thing. Oh, the toddler's eating a cookie and it's not dinner time, so that's a bad thing. Really? Is it really a bad thing? Is it really a bad thing, or are they just eating a cookie? They're just eating a cookie. We're the one who project it's going to spoil your dinner part to it. And then we extrapolate from that when they eat the cookie the next day. Oh, now you're not being obedient. So now they're imperfect. No, they just want a cookie. Because they believe the cookie's a good thing. And I believe a cookie's is a good thing too. These are just opinions and judgments people make. The snail is as perfect as the dog's tail or the pussycat's wail. That was just some fun wordplay I did. The snail is perfect. It's meant to be a snail, and they do what the snails do. My dog does not have a tail, but he wags it. And I was thinking today, isn't that the answer for the person who thinks they don't have something they need to have, or that they should have or don't have? My dog doesn't have a tail, but he wags it like he has the biggest tail. Let's say you don't have something you want. Well, believe you have it anyway. I was talking with somebody today who wants to interview me for a radio show. And I said, I was putting in my profile on Twitter that I was an author. The author of You Are God's Best Idea, Divine Acceptations, and Living the Undeniable Life. The book it didn't exist yet. It was in my head. But I was wagging that tail anyway until it came to be. There is a perfect purpose to a volcano's eruption. Did you know in the Ice Age, if you've read in the book, when at one time the earth was totally covered by ice, it was the eruptions of the volcanoes that mixed with elements in the air that eventually created the thaw. So those volcanoes have a purpose. So when one goes off, whatever damage comes from them ain't the volcano's fault. We need Mother Earth to do that. We need the hurricanes. It's the way that we cool things down. Now, we can argue about the intensity of the hurricanes, and is global warming making them more frequent or more severe? I'm not a scientist. I'm not here to debate that. But the hurricane in and of itself is not a bad thing. It is not a tragedy. It is how the earth cools itself off. Always has been and always will be. Now, for people who live in places where where they know hurricanes come, it just is. It just is. You chose to live there, and you get a lot of enjoyment out of that. I'd like to live somewhere like that sometime, and maybe I will. But when the hurricane comes, I'm not going to blame the hurricane. It has a purpose, because all there is God, and God is all there is. You can't, once you start separating things, then you're saying, well, this little thing isn't God. It has nothing to do with God. And it can't be. It kind of blows the whole hypothesis. And that's the same with, we mentioned the hurricane and earthquakes and all of it. So the epigrams that are associated with this divine idea: until you accept your perfection, you are in a state of misconception or misperception. The problem with the world is it keeps trying to transcend its perfection instead of owning up to it. Own up to your beauty and your goodness. If you do that, you might be more likely to be good and beautiful, right? I am perfection and progress. You are perfection and progress. We are perfection and progress. I want to do that together. Point to yourself and say, I am perfection and progress.
I am perfection and progress.
You are perfection and progress.
You are perfection and progress.
Oh, you all pointed toward me. You could have pointed. Now, see, you could have pointed to somebody else, but the fact that you pointed to me is good. We are perfection in progress.
We are perfection in progress.
There's a misconception that perfection means that it isn't anymore. That's not so. Perfection doesn't mean that you can't do better than that. The guy who ran the fastest 100 time ran a perfect 100-yard dash. It was a perfect time. The guy who broke it wasn't necessarily more perfect, but it was perfection in progress. That's all. It is perfection in progress, yes. If you believe in the evolution of the human being, that first human being that had a whole lot more hair than we had was perfect for its moment in time. And it lost hair, and it got smarter, and the brain grew, and it discovered tools and all those other things. But that was perfection in progress. But it was a perfect caveman when it was there. It was. And we know that some dinosaurs evolved into birds. It was a perfect dinosaur, and it's a perfect blue jay. But they're definitely related. We are such silly beings, finding it burdensome to acclimate to our divine perfection. Because so often we're in survival mode. We're struggling and striving, and really we just need to allow and accept. We have trouble acclimating to our perfection. So we make up stuff, don't we? We project. Well, that again, getting back to the 5-year-old or the 7-year-old. 7-year-old loses its front teeth. Oh, it's missing teeth now. Well, it's supposed to, because it's making way for better teeth. You need only consent to your perfection in order to realize it. So stop fighting yourself. Consent to your perfection. The divine pattern is perfect. We know that, right? The planets and everything, and the sunrise and sunset and the tides and all that stuff it's all working. There are all these what they call fractals. The pattern, you'll see it in trees and leaves. Everything kind of goes like a snowflake. That's the pattern of life. These patterns are perfect. It is only in our unconsciousness that we've designed a puzzle. It's not a puzzle. We make it a puzzle. The divine pattern is perfect. It is only our unconsciousness that where we have designed a puzzle. A perfect boat. Oh, this is a good one. This is a recent one. A perfect boat with a perfect hull perfectly sinks. Thus the perfection of the universe. The Titanic, it was a pretty good boat. That iceberg is a pretty good iceberg. And the hole that came out of the collision was a pretty good hole. It isn't tragic necessarily. It just is the way some things happen. Some things crash into each other. From what we think, the Earth, I think it was the Earth and either two planets collided that created the Earth, and the moon was an offshoot of the two Earths crashing together. That is one of the theories, but it works. That moon being there brings the water up, takes the water down. Stop reinventing yourself. God did it perfectly the first time. I got a lot of response on that one on Twitter. A lot of response, and that doesn't mean that if you've lived a certain way for a while and it doesn't work, not to change it. It just means that inherently at your core, you were a pretty good creation to begin with. And really, if we kind of peel it back and go back to the beginning, we'll find that we really kind of need to shed the garbage that we collected over time. Really? That just kind of popped in my head there. And at the end here, I say this particular divine idea, God doesn't ask that you be perfect, only to be perfectly you. And therein lies the perfection. Be you, be authentic. An example would be, I've been in the music industry a long, long time, and invariably, whenever there's an original, there are then the copies. And the copies are never as good as the original. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be influenced. The Beatles were influenced by Buddy Holly, Little Richard, and Chuck Berry. And in their early days, they did a lot of covers. But over time, they did nothing but originals. And they were very unique and special together, and individually too. The Dave Clark Five were pretty cool, but they weren't the Beatles. And the Rolling Stones were they were the bad guys. They were the originals. And so on and so forth. And so it goes. Lady Gaga's an original. Elton John was an original. Queen was an original. Nobody can duplicate that. So there is abundance. It is all here. You are provided for. There is no lack. You have a glorious inheritance waiting. You are only limited by your imagination. So I wrote this one just yesterday. I added it to the list. Be thankful for what, be thankful. You know, the old saying is be thankful for what you got. I say be thankful for what they've got, for it is proof of an abundant universe which awaits your acceptation. So when somebody has something, instead of going, man, they got too much, say, wow, that is proof, that is evidence that they tapped into something. This was one of the first ones I've written, and to me, it's as powerful as anything I've ever written. Envy is the bane of abundance. As long as you have that bit of envy in you, admiration, yes. Envy, no. Envy will kill your dream. It will stop you in right where you sit. Don't wait or wish for God to intercede when God has given you God's power and law to intercede, and change them yourself. Start sowing the seeds. The saddest part of the human condition is that far too many are drowning in an ocean of abundance. There are people that literally are drowning in abundance because that's all there is abundance. The homeless person is drowning in abundance. Now, additionally, my consciousness has risen to the point where I can look at that homeless person and say, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, and there's an example of this, a guy they called Aqualung who lived in Charleston, West Virginia. I saw him every day. He looked just like the character Aqualung that's on the cover of the Jethro Tull album. He, at one point in his life, he was a banker. He was well-to-do. At some point in his life, around in his 40s, he decided he was going to live on the street. And he did for 30 years. Some people do decide to do that. And if they're happy and that's what they want to manifest, then we have to have a consciousness that says that's okay. It's all right. It's okay. I thought about doing it once or twice myself, but that was because I was frustrated, not because it was something I really wanted to do. Great intentions begin with great comprehensions. You can't intend to be abundant. You can't intend to be abundant if you can't comprehend abundance. So if you can't comprehend it, it's hard to intend it. Which is why I think it's all right to occasionally look at somebody who's got a lot, and instead of being upset about it, emulate them. Maybe they have something to share. Abundance isn't the way to happiness. Happiness is the way to abundance. So you have to have a consciousness of abundance. Or even if you come into money, an inheritance, it may go away. So that's why this is all about raising consciousness. Until you empty your hands of the emptiness you carry, you will not be able to sign for the abundance divinity delivers. Have you ever known anyone like that? Who, like an Eeyore, they literally carry their lack around with them in their movement, in their vibration. God shares with us that which he knows, or it knows, or she knows, we shall share. Now, this is my own little idea. You don't have to accept it. But I believe that your abundance is a reflection of your own accord. Meaning that just like opportunity, I believe, meets somebody who's ready to take advantage of the opportunity. If you're not ready to take advantage of an opportunity, you'll find somebody else to go to. Money wants to be circulated. It wants to be respected. It wants to be used. It'll, because this is all energy. It'll find somebody else who will invest it and use it better if you don't know how to use it or handle it. Because it is energy. When you wish, this is one of my all-time favorites. When you wish upon a star, you remain exactly where you are. When you know who you are, you go anywhere you wish. So we're not talking about wishing and hoping, although they're niceties and we think of Disney movies. But you got to know. You got to know it. I'll speed through the rest of these because are we getting the idea? The law of attraction. Life is a gift exchange. You are a spiritual radio station, sending and receiving. The quality of the energy you send is the quality that returns, oftentimes and usually multiplied. The law of cause and effect. It is the great law of life, is it not? Ernest Holmes writes about that. This isn't punishment, consequence. Again, nobody is judging. This cause and effect thing isn't meant to punish you. It is simply a consequence, usually to teach you to do something differently. A perfect person who walks off a perfect ledge falls perfectly to the ground. It's still perfect. A perfect seed sown into perfect soil produces a perfect crop, which is or should be perfectly harvested or accepted. So if you pull out any of those steps, guess what? Have we known people that sowed a perfect seed into perfect soil that produced a perfect crop, but they didn't accept it? Oh, this is too good to be true. There are people who do that. Understand that you have to harvest at the end of the day. I think I actually say in the book, I was thinking of Van Gogh when I wrote this, don't plant a seed of beautiful wheat just to paint a pretty picture of it. Eventually you want to harvest it and eat it, make it into bread or something. The law of attraction is powered by love. Even when the not so good arrives, it traveled on the wings of love. There's a lot of people that cannot get past that. They can't get past that. But even when the not so good arrives, it isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to help you in one way or another. There is futility in condemnation, power in love. Don't condemn. Nothing is more powerful than a reception of conception and an act of conviction, except two who do. You put two people that have got a good idea together, wow, watch out. 3 or 4 or 5. The law of attraction in one word, self-constructive. You're basically constructing your life. To meet expectations, you must introduce yourself to them. If you ask somebody, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or what do you want to do? Man, if you haven't got an answer, you haven't thought about it. So how can you meet that expectation if you've never thought about it? What is your life expectancy? Why not expect the best? Eliminate your need to need. Need is not good. When you need, I need. It's not a good jumping off point. Great expectations begin with great acceptations. Accept and allow, and all your needs will be met. What you prepare for, you invite through expectation. Prepare for miracles. Why not? Why not? What you prepare for, you invite through expectation. So I prepared for this through 18 months of Twitter writing and classes before I had enough material prepared to then flesh out into a book. Expectancy begins with acceptance. Accept all the good you can conceive. Accept it. In Ralph Waldo Emerson, I don't know the sentence exactly, but basically he says something to the effect that, isn't it interesting when our ideas come back to us in the form of somebody else and we go, wow, but it was our idea, but we didn't act on it. We didn't do anything about it. But we're often very quick to go, hey, that's great, even though it may have passed through our mind originally. Acceptations, the 10th and final idea that we'll discuss today. You must accept, that's why the book is called Divine Acceptations. You must accept all the good. I'm not a big fan of the word must, but I really want to drive this home. You must accept all the good you choose. No one can make you accept anything. You must have a receptive consciousness. You must feel and believe that you are worthy of all of God's good, which is why the book is called You Are God's Best Idea. I thought that way it would really get across, because people have been talking about inherent divinity and how good we are for a long time, but maybe not quite so succinctly or to the point. You must have faith and confidence in yourself and the universe to bring about what you dream about. That's where faith comes in. And then you must trust the process. You must celebrate the good that come to all and refrain from rejoicing in the troubles of others. You must allow God to express with and through you. Let love express with and through you. You must be open to the possibilities and not rely on probabilities. That's a big one for me. Go for the possibilities. If you're shooting for probabilities, that's human mind. Possibility is the human spirit or the divine spirit. And quickly, God provides life's ingredients: power, beauty, joy, peace, light, and love. It is we who are measured by our measure. In other words, we take those things and then we measure them out, don't we? We decide, if you think of a spice rack with beauty, love, and peace and all those things on there, we can put that into our daily makeup or not. So people measure us by our measure. The more love we put in, the more we're going to be perceived as loving and receive the offspring of love. You are an usher. You're pointing yourself to past resentments or coming attractions. Live your affections, not your resentments. How many of us are still living old resentments? Not too much anymore. How many of us are living our affections? The only sentence we serve is the verdict we accept. What have you sentenced yourself to? Really, that's what it's all about. You've decided, not somebody else. You've decided what the verdict is. So sentence yourself to greatness. Sentence yourself to love. Sentence yourself to beauty. You have the power. Nobody else is doing it. There's nothing wrong with you that a little divine acceptance wouldn't cure. The power of your conviction is equal to the breadth of your acceptance. Again, I want you to accept it. Faith is the acceptation of expectation. In other words, you have an expectation, it's got to be followed by acceptation, and then that's faith. Because if you pull your acceptance out of it, it'll just go, what you expected. It's like the ice cream truck. You expect it to come by at 11 o'clock, and it does. But you forgot to get your quarter and stand outside. You were expecting it, but you let it go by. How could you not hear the sound? That ice cream truck sound is on all the time. The person who is in opposition is the one most needing acceptance. So if you got a friend who is always angry or always, oh, I don't like that, what that politician says, and oh, I don't like what that actor says. Oh no, is that Richard? I do that too. I do it. I do. Politics is a tough one. I understand, but that's why we vote, and that's why we have a vote. Unsuccessful people spend most of their time protecting, I'll flip the page, protecting themselves from rejection instead of being open to acceptance. We know that with stage fright. I mean, you want to be an actor, but you have stage fright, and so you don't do what you love because you're afraid. I'm fairly fearless, but I had a seed planted in my head. My broadcasting school teacher told me that once I did my first radio show, I would never be afraid of anything ever again. And I don't know if he was right because it's true, or if it's it's true because he said it. But I became mostly fearless after that. And when I interview and meet all these musical stars, Elton John, Lionel Richie, Phil Collins, I go, "Hey, it's great to meet you." I don't go, "Oh, you're Phil Collins and I'm just a DJ." I go, "Man, this is great to meet you." To be the best, you need only recognize that there are none worse. Recognition of others' divinity is an acceptance of your own. So if you don't accept another's divinity, if you deny it in them, you're denying it in you. Because you can't be divine and they're not. They may not act very divine, but they're still divine. Because God is all there is, and all there is God. There are no exceptions. The only thing that we really need to get is to accept what we've already got, your inherent divinity. People will begin to accept you when you openly receive them. So again, nobody in this room has problems making friends, I'm sure. But if you have an issue, maybe it's because you're not openly accepting others. They will openly accept you. And finally, only the miserable can speak of misery because they have accepted misery as their truth instead of triumph. And I don't usually do harsh ones, but every once in a while you need to kind of put it in those terms. Misery loves company. So if you're miserable, it could be you've accepted misery as an acceptable state of being, which of course it shouldn't be. So, in conclusion of part 1, the whole idea of the book is that life is rooted in the acceptance of the spiritual truth that you are a divine being right here and right now. That is a divine acceptation which raises your awareness and consciousness. Enlightenment means that you are aware that you are the answer to your own prayer. Through your inherent inner divinity, you can do anything and be open to all good because you will no longer be operating from fear or doubt. And we'll talk a lot about fear and doubt because it's a biggie. Life will be simply undeniable. And there is no place for fear and doubt in the undeniable. You accept you are divine and important, needed and necessary, loved in the beloved, because it's the truth. Or you simply wouldn't be here. So again, thank you very much. God bless you. God bless us, everyone.